Shalom, Paul Halal, Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai, Bashim Chachadash, live on to the apostle, great millstone, and Shalom, to brothers on the highways and byways, doing the work sincerely and faithfully, continue fighting the good fight of faith, Lord willing, we'll find that number to be delivered, alright? So this lesson that, I'm going to speak on, while I'm going to my destination, concerning the words of Apostle Paul, alright? Primarily, the scripture where it reads in Galatians, the 3rd chapter, there's neither Jew nor Greek, alright? So-called Christians of today use that as the gateway scripture to invite everybody into salvation. So let's back up a little bit, right? Before the Lord got on that cross, these heathenistic nations weren't thinking nothing of the Lord. Didn't care about the Lord, didn't know about the Lord, had no idea what the Lord was going through. Alright? And now the question you gotta ask is this. At what point in time did these other nations feel that it was time to worship the Lord? When you go back when the Lord was with his disciples, right? He specifically told them, go not into the way of the Gentiles, or enter in the city of the Samaritans, enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, that's something you just can't ignore. You can't ignore what the Lord said right there. But go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That says it all in a nutshell. Alright? So now, also, going to Galatians, I believe it's the 2nd chapter, the Apostle Paul made mention that Peter was to the circumcision and Paul was to the uncircumcised, so to say, right? Roughly paraphrasing. So if the Apostle Paul was to go to the people known as Gentiles, right? Why then would he tell his disciples, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel? The Apostle Paul was known as the apostle to the Gentiles, right? The word Gentilis, which is also a stranger. So if the Apostle Paul was to the Gentiles and Peter was to those who understood that they were Israelites from the jump, where in the thought process of these Christians, you feel that the Apostle Paul was going to actual heathens or actual other nations? Just because the Lord said neither Jew nor Greek. Now, backing up on that, when you're in the world today, right, and if you see somebody that you haven't seen in a long time, you're gonna be like, yo, what's up, stranger? Where you been, man? So indicating that you're recognizing someone and you're familiar with somebody. So that term stranger right there can apply to the Israelite foreigners, which it does apply to the Israelite foreigners by those who understood and knew they were out to go reach out to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. They knew who they were talking to. They knew who they were dealing with. And this is another reason why they were called strangers in that aspect. Now also, you can look at the term stranger. For example, if you're walking down the street and somebody comes up and grabs you by the hand or by the arm, and you truly don't know this dude, you're going to tell somebody, yo, this motherfucking stranger came up on me and grabbed my shit. Excuse my language. Alright? So, are there two types of strangers even in the world that we live in today? Absolutely. A stranger that you haven't seen in a long time, and a stranger that you truly don't even know. So why would the Apostle Paul and the apostles themselves, why would they be set up to go to strangers that they truly don't know? You see? Hence the reason why Yahweh Shai said, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Okay? So it's no marvel or mystery that what's happening right now is the gathering of those lost sheep who are the nation of Israel, those strangers, if you will, those Gentiles, if you will. strictly living as the way of the heathen. Likewise, even in today's society, once again, you got let's say people from Texas, all right? They would classify themselves as Americans. I'm speaking of Israelites now. They can class themselves as Americans and then classify themselves as Texans. All right? Likewise, here in Boston, they can classify themselves as Americans and they can classify themselves as Bostonians. Likewise, New York. Americans and New Yorkers. But what? They're all still of the seed of Israel. They're all still Israelites. And this is what a lot of you people don't understand. Just because they was living in these regions doesn't make them a true inhabitant of that region. Israelites, as James says, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. So these Israelites, known as Jews and Greeks, or Jews and strangers, these people are all the same people. Now, if you go to Genesis, the 10th chapter, right, known as the Table of Nations, somebody needs to explain, some of you Christians need to explain, or whoever you may be, you need to explain how there's roughly 18 nations of people on the planet, but the Apostle Paul makes reference, I'm going to say, technically of one. He says two, the Jews, but that's the subject matter. So he makes representation of the Greeks. What about everybody else? We've gone through this over and over and over. But you have to understand who the Apostle Paul was speaking to. It's like when somebody builds a house, right? The fundamental principles of building a house is you start on the base level. You start at ground zero. You dig the foundation, right? And from digging that foundation, you apply the first floor. Let's say it's going to be a 2-story house. You apply the first floor, and then you apply, the walls, and you may want to put a staircase somewhere within that dwelling to get to the second floor. And once you apply these things, you now can build on that second tier, right? Well, you Christians lost and lose the fundamentals of building, right? The fundamentals of building is step 1, step 2, step 3. Likewise, when you read these scriptures, you just can't pick up the Bible and open it and say, and try to prove your point that, oh, look, see, the Apostle Paul said there's neither Jew nor Greek. Well, wait a minute. You're starting out on the second floor and you haven't built the foundation yet. You see, opening the scriptures and reading from a certain point doesn't justify what your point is. It doesn't justify of what your thought is. You have to go to ground zero first. You got to understand who the letters were written to, who wrote the letters, what was contained in the letters, in the whole body of the letter. We make mention of, if you write a letter to somebody and it says, all of you are going to receive $1 million, right? And somebody outside of whom the letter was written to receives or gets a hold of a copy of that letter. And he's reading, he jumps right to the point where it says, we're all going to receive $1 million. Is that valid for that person? No. Because what that person failed to do was go to the beginning of the letter to see who the letter was addressed to. All right? And the majority of the letters that were written and the scriptures that are written were addressed to who? The nation of Israel, the children of Israel. Okay? Going back to Gentiles, Jew nor Greek, Gentiles. There are 2 types of Gentiles. Okay? Actual Gentiles who are other nations, and Israelites who are living as the other nations who are called Gentiles. Likewise, they use the term uncircumcision with the circumcision. Same thing. Likewise, the term stranger. Okay? These are all synonymous with one another. You just can't pick up the scriptures and read something and apply it to everybody. And even after the Lord was crucified, right? At what point did you heathens decide to say, "Oh, he died for us. He died for us"? Now, one would make the argument, well, this is why the disciples and everybody, the apostles, had to go and teach the other nations. No, the apostles and disciples were given a specific commandment on who they were supposed to be teaching and reaching out to. All right? Now, in Galatians, I believe it's the 6th chapter, the last book of Galatians, right? The Apostle Paul makes mention of the Israelites to the Israelites of the Most High. Well, wait a minute. Why is he referring to the Jews and the Greeks? And then one of the very last statements he makes in that book to those people are the children of Israel, to the Israelites of the Most High. Why would he make mention of that? Why is he even concerned with the Israelites of the Most High? Because he was set up to be that apostle to those Gentiles who were Israelites. That's why the Apostle Paul made these statements. All right? Going back to Romans, the 9th chapter, he clearly lays it out in the first 3 verses. He laid it out, got down. All right? To whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the giving of the law and the covenants. Who do those things belong to? He mentions nothing about the Jews, the Greeks in that one. Why? Because the sole purpose and premise and base of what Paul was to do was go out and to reach those Israelites, man. Period. And as you go through this thing and you see these Christians and you see their videos and they're so they're so ready to bring everybody into the fold. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, man. A lot of you people are gonna be highly and sorely disappointed when this thing starts really opening up, man, as it already is. All right. And this is why the disciples of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the servants of the Lord, the meek of whom He has chosen, when we go out on the highways and byways, we strictly tell you that this word was meant for the nation and children of Israel and Israel only, without a shadow of a doubt. So you people can't keep using these scriptures as if it's their goal, saying, "Oh, look, there's neither Jew nor Greek. The Jews. Well, what about the other nations? Besides the Greeks, what about the Moabites, the Ammonites? What about all these people?" When the Lord came down and confounded the language, all right, everybody went off and spoke their own language. So now, not everybody spoke Greek. But why is it mentioned to the Jews and the Greeks? All right? But all that being said, we know and we prophesy that the things that are coming to pass are for the children of Israel. The nation of Israel is the only nation whom the Lord got on that cross for, period. Even during the time when the Apostle Paul was seeking safety, so to say. Hold on 1 second. We can cross this little road here. By going to Pontius Pilate and all these other kings and so on and so forth, they were making mention of the Apostle Paul like, that's your law. These are things that pertain to your people. You want to go to Caesar and appeal to Caesar for something that your people are after you for? You see? Why is that? Why did they make mention of it was his own people that was after him, that was looking to crucify him, so to say? All right? That's your law. You see to that. That's your business. And they all knew. They all knew who the Lord was coming for. They all knew who the Lord was concerning the nation of Israel. They knew he sprang out of the tribe of Israel, one of the seeds of Israel. Right? But the majority of people don't read these things. You read these really, you'll read these scriptures that identify somebody, but you can't narrow down to who is being identified. So therefore, you make it a blanket statement that is for everybody. All right? So I'm going to end it with that right there. Lord willing, brothers are edified. As we know, this is nothing new. But this thing that, these Christians and all these so-called, theologists, they want to lump everybody in to the salvation of the Lord. It's too simple, man. It's too simple. All right? So with that, I'm going to say, all praise due to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Lord, when I see you, brother, another show, I say shalom.